But no, they work fantastically together. It's very complementary. But I think, as Fabrice has said, they've both got different angles at how they look at things. But it's never combative. It's right. How they add something to a solution rather than how they lock horns, because they don't.
How does somebody go from concept to design to manufacturing and then selling of a painting accessory? I sit down with Fabrice and James of Redgrass Games, and we talk about just that. Now, listeners already know that I am a big fan of Redgrass Games. If you ever watch my paint streams, you see that I use their brushes, their holders, I use their wet palette. And it was great for me to learn their approach, their philosophy, and how they make the journey from concept to Kickstarter. Unfortunately, Fabrice's audio wasn't the best. There was a bit of an echo, and Fabrice does have an accent for my English-speaking audience. But your ears will adjust, and Fabrice's insights were fascinating. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my time with Redgrass Games.
Third Floor Wars delivers interviews, insights, and discussions about everything hitting the tabletop. Rulebooks, plastic models, dice, and cards in hand. Let the gaming begin. Tabletop games let you escape and unleash grand battles and regale epic tales of adventure with your friends. If you love gaming and learning from players, designers, experts, and creators, you are in the right place. Pull up a chair. Craig and Ray welcome you to the Third Floor and the Tabletop Talk Podcast.
Howdy friends, Craig here. Today we're talking to Fabrice Massad and James Reegan of Redgrass Games. Now Fabrice, along with his brother Vivian, grew up playing board games and painting miniatures. After a successful career in consultancy, he took his skills for business and design and founded Redgrass Games. Now listeners know that I'm a shill. I backed Redgrass from the beginning on their first wet palette, and I got it and fell in love. And you've heard me tout that several times on all my painting streams. Redgrass, in full disclosure, has sent me goodies to review, which we'll talk about. But you've also heard me talk about their brushes and how I basically think that dollar for dollar, there's only two companies putting out great brushes, and Redgrass is one of them. So after all of that building up, Fabrice, welcome to the Third Floor.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. Well, it's great. I mean, it's great to be able to talk a little bit more about how we do things, because I think we've been shy about it so far. So
you have been a little bit. That's really the reason that I've been hounding you to come on the show, because I want to get a sense of, because to a certain degree, Fabrice, it felt like you guys came out of nowhere and have suddenly, in just a couple of years now, have become consider a major player as far as hobby supplies. But we're going to get into all of that. The first thing I want is your origin story. So we know that that you grew up and got into consultancy and did that. But let's go backwards. What I want to find out is where your first exposure and love of the hobby comes from.
Actually, I mean, this is a good thing we started this, because we started, I mean, it's actually Vivian who started this passion, I would say, to be around miniatures. We were, I think, in junior high school, and he came back a day with a set of orcs, Warhammer 40k. Yeah. And it was secondhand. I mean, the army didn't need anything. I mean, it was a mixed match of stuff. And yeah, we started collecting, and to be honest, I mean, he was the one doing the right things. I mean, painting the right way and playing the right way, and I was in the opposite. I mean, doing things was just accumulating, these orcs, and I don't know why. I was trying always to make them act like they were space marines. They were not good enough for me. I didn't understand the principle of what orcs were meant to be, and yeah, that's a little bit the story. I mean, how it all started. She's with Vivian is really the guy who knows what's going on with these miniatures, and I'm the one who goes along and try to make this, rolling and stuff. So yeah, so that's how it started.
That's phenomenal. So my second guest is James, and he's the community manager of Redgrass and a longtime miniature painter. While painting, blogging about painting, and doing commission work, he used his hobby and online engagement skills to start working with Redgrass. So James, you have an interesting origin story, but let's get to your transfer and move from one career to this career. But let's go back even further and let's hear your hobby origin story.
I feel like Hans Zimmer should be playing in the background. Well, like any kind of young teenage boy, at the turn of the millennium, I was obsessed with things like World War II. And so I was already doing a lot of things like Airfix and Revel kits of, Spitfires and Tiger tanks and things like that. And one day, my older sister brought her new boyfriend round the house, and he was admiring the planes hanging off my ceiling. And I feel fine saying this, by the way, because he's now her husband, so it worked out.
Good.
It worked out.
Good.
And he was like, "Have you ever heard of Warhammer?" And I said,
"Oh boy,
what?" Exactly. Oh boy, there should have been a kind of ominous peal of thunder in the background,
and dollar bills burning.
Yeah, and I think he came back a couple of days later, not even to see her, to see me, and he had this treasure trove of second edition 40k stuff. Wow. So kind of Space Hulk and things like that. It was all jumbled up. It didn't make any sense at all, and I just poured into it. I just instantly loved it. And pretty much haven't looked back.
So how about you as a painter, James? Because that's really, I think, a big part of the story. When did your love of painting come from, and how did you develop it? Sure.
I mean, in terms of being a kind of committed painter, I haven't it's been the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't count my adolescent efforts.
Nobody does.
Yeah. But, at high school, I did have an interest in art. So I did the end of high school exams. I did an art exam. My first degree at Oxford, a heavy element was art history.
Nice subtle flex there.
Yeah.
My first degree at Oxford.
Yeah. I'm the brains behind the operation. I need to show it off every now and then.
That's great. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. So after your first degree at Oxford.
Yeah, my first one. And it was classical art history and things like that. Nice. So I've always been very interested in art, and I've always had this kind of creative urge. And then, 2 or 3 years ago, I was very kind of unhappy, unfulfilled in my job. Yep. And I wanted a creative expression after work. And so I thought, well, I used to really enjoy models. Well, maybe I could get back into that. Second peal of ominous thunder as I walk into my local Warhammer store just to see what's happened in the last, decade or so.
Yeah.
And they got me good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, was it difficult for you to pick up the brush again and really kind of dive into it? Because you've become a very good painter.
Thank you.
And that doesn't happen overnight. So I'd be curious, is that just hours and hours of painting?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, nobody likes to hear that because they're all hoping that there's going to be one quick, like an internet clickbait, one quick tip. And all your answers will be solved. But no, it's when people say, "Oh, how do you get so good at painting?" I'm like, I have no life. This is I have no life.
Well, also you don't post your failures on Instagram, right?
Exactly.
So they're seeing a curated view.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's I've done blogs before about social media hobbying and the mental health aspects behind that. And you do have to be careful. It's a very sanitized view. You can scroll back if you have the stamina to go back to the starts of my page, because I wanted somewhere to connect with like-minded individuals, because in my real life I knew no one who's doing this, so when I started I was just trying to do the box art stuff, just copy what the heavy metal painters were doing. And I just found it quite unrewarding because I guess it ties back into this creative expression thing.
Right.
I wasn't really flexing because I was just copying. For me, I know for lots of other people, that's perfect. That's what they really want to do. For them, the highest form of accomplishment is to be heavy metal standard. And I respect that a great deal. But for me, it just wasn't scratching the itch. And so I actually started to enjoy painting a lot more when I was being brave and daring and trying my own things. And that's kind of what's led me to where I am today.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, James. And I don't know if Fabrice wants to hear this, but I'm sure he would agree with me. People, I tout the palette, and it comes up very often in my conversations. And people go, well, what's the deal with a wet palette? Does it make you a better painter? I say, nope, it does not.
Yeah,
it does not. And what brushes should I use? I'm struggling as a painter, and I go, well, the issue is not your brushes. Now, don't get me wrong. Having the right tools is very, very important to get to where you're going, but it's not going to get you there. It just makes the path a little bit easier. So I thoroughly appreciate that. So guys, the Insider Insight series is my opportunity to sit down with designers, developers, artists, writers, and creators and learn about how they approach their work. I try to understand their process, inspiration, and methods for crafting their creations. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk to Fabrice and James about where the company comes from, where these ideas come from, and how this design process works. We'll be right back.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
There are so many online retailers. It can be hard to find one that is trustworthy, has great prices, along with some reliable customer service. On the third floor, we love ordering our gaming goodies from Gadzooks Gaming. Their selection of terrain, miniatures, dice, custom decor, and conversion bits are curated for gamers by gamers. You'll find they have what you need and what you didn't know you needed to take your gaming fun to the next level. If you mention Third Floor Wars in the cart notes of your order, you'll also get a free gift. And you'll help support the podcast. Check out gadzooksgaming.com and mention Third Floor Wars on checkout to get that free gift.
So I kind of mentioned it in the first segment. For me, Redgrass kind of came out of nowhere. I remember distinctly coming across the first Kickstarter for the first wet palette, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And from a design perspective, I was fascinated. There was a whole new concept being presented, not only in the design of the palette itself, but at that point was the first time a mention of a membrane type thing was there. So I said, you know what the heck, I'm going to go ahead and get this. And there's a story behind that first Kickstarter, and we'll get to that in a moment. But as again, people that follow me know I'm a huge fan of the product. So, Fabrice, for you, it didn't come out of nowhere. For you, you had done a lot of work before that first Kickstarter came up. So I'd be very curious to know how you and your brother, like, at what point was the first mention of maybe we should, start making things and selling it? When did that first happen?
I think we need to go back. I used to be, a consultant, strategy consultant. I don't know if it means something anyway for
it does. Yeah,
people who have not done this, but it was an interesting career. But I needed something more in the sense that I wanted to create things, to do things. I wanted to create my own company basically and run my stuff. This was the idea. And that's when I basically left this job and I tried to start to create new project. I was standing on my own, which was a very bad idea, I think, with reflecting. And you try to have your own ideas, and you're playing in front of your wall. It's like throwing a ball at yourself. It goes back.
Yep.
But yeah, I could never pick up steam. And after a while, I tried the project. I won't spend too much time discussing it, but with someone else, and the idea was interesting, but then it fell apart. And it was at this time that Regan came to me and he said, Fabrice, you're not doing anything. Would you like that to try and work and do something for miniature painting? I was like, miniature painting? the thing we used to do when we were in junior high school, right?
That's funny.
You remember? I was so. You remember? I didn't know how to paint. You remember that? I said,
sure.
Yes, I do. That's not the question. But so this is how it started, and he started to show me where the hobby went, because junior high school is all like, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? I don't remember. Anyway, it's a long time ago, so the hobby changed so much in between, with all these tabletop games, all this Kickstarter community, all these pro painters, all these YouTubers. Anyway, all these, didn't exist at the time. So he started to show me all these and say, oh yes, there's something interesting, something going on. Maybe we could do something. And say, okay, so now what are we doing? What do you want to do? Because I think it came from originally for Vivian, who wants to do things for his hobby, basically. So he told me, yeah, we should do this thing. I won't say exactly what it was, because it was a bit lame. And for me, I was not a painter. I said, do you really want to do something like that? It was a very side, let's say, accessories, not very central to the hobby. You could live without it without any issue. So I was thinking, maybe it's not the best way to start. So That's when we start to go to his desk. His painting desk. He doesn't have a proper painting desk, so that people do not imagine that we live in a mansion with a huge desk and everything. It's more like it was in his kitchen. Yeah, that's where he set up his miniature painting, and we had a look at all he had. Of course, brushes nice brushes, set of paints and stuff. And in the middle of that, there was some kind of transparent box, I don't know. I think it was a hand box, but I don't know if the US hand box is the same thing. But it was it was literally a hand box, very small, and there was a yellow sponge in it. And some baking paper on top. I say, okay, what is that? Because when I was painting back in, I think it was 1995 or something, there was, I don't think wet palette was something at the time. So I didn't know what it was, and say, that's my wet palette. I said, really? And you paint with that? He said, yes. You put paint on this, it won't dry, it's great, and blah, blah, blah. So I said, don't you think I could make this a little bit better? And he said, why do you want this better? It's good enough. It's good enough for us. Say,
he's talking you out of it.
The true story is finally revealed.
I say, come on, this is a nice idea. This is your main palette. It's important to you. You say, oh yes, maybe you're right. Maybe you could do something. And that's when we started to think, because the difficulty with this product is that anybody can make one. I think anybody can custom make one. You can go and buy a box or find some kind of sponge or something. Yep. And we thought, if we wanted to do something, we need to help people change maybe a little bit the way they paint, or help them painting. Of course, it won't make them the greatest painter on earth, but maybe it could help them a little bit, give them comfort, be more at ease with what they're doing. So that's the little thing. You do this and there, and I think remove uncertainty in what they're doing, in the sense that will I find the right sponge, will I find the right paper, and everything. So that's how we started. And then came the idea is, why don't we make it reusable? It just started like this. It's like we try to find a direction. We have a subject. Yep. And then we try to say, okay, how can we make it reusable? That's that thing, because we think, it might change the way people see this tool, and maybe we could improve along the way by changing the main, paper membrane we were using at the time. So that's how it started.
So I'd be curious, Fabrice. To a certain degree, you were an outsider in this scenario, right? Because you had not been painting. You never really were a painter. You'd been out of the hobby for a while, and like your brother, it sounds like, was actively painting in his kitchen. Do you think that combination of your brother being an active palette user, you coming from an outsider perspective, do you think that two of those things helped and impacted the design?
I think that as I have let's say a fresh view on the thing. Right. I can stimulate maybe ideas. Some are lame, some are out of the place. Some don't bring anything, but some ideas I think bring something. And if you talk to someone who knows painting, who has a feeling for painting, you will see things that I didn't see in the idea generated first, and then together, yes, it will help construct. I think I think if you're all like-minded, you will see the product, the world as it is today. If you have someone who comes from the outside and you can mix it up with someone who knows from the outside, I think that's where, you can bring something new.
Yeah.
And so I think that's more or less how we create product along the way, in the sense that we can, at the earlier stage, me as an outsider and Vivian, we can have the initial idea and discuss about it. So we can have a direction of where we're going to go. And then, of course, after this first initial step, I will step back a little bit because I don't have any knowledge in painting or sufficient knowledge to bring much to the table. And Vivian will take over then, and we do all the process of iterating and finding the right way to do the thing. This is the general framework and how we work, but then, it will evolve over time, of course, because initially it was more, the initial idea was fun, reusability, but it was, at first, we didn't really know how to do this.
Yeah. So I'd be curious, in that process. So this is, you haven't launched the Kickstarter yet. You're going through iterations and designs. What were some of the major breakthroughs? So when you look at that process before you went to launch, what were some things that the two of you figured out that immediately made you realize that, we have something new here. We have something to offer?
I think what carried us, it might be strange because at the end the product was not this. What's carried us is trying to make it a reusable palette, because I think this started us in a direction to challenge let's say, the elements that people were using to paint, and the sponge and the paper and everything, to find something. And I think that's how it went out. And maybe I can tell you a little bit more on how we do stuff, because once you've got the idea, you need to do it. And as you may have noticed, we don't tend to study too much what's on the market and what people are doing.
Yeah.
We don't spend a lot of time surveying, talking with customers, on hearing feedbacks. We try to have, let's say, a radical direction, and then we try to build it. And along the way, there will be breakthroughs happening. And by breakthroughs, we tend to just try. There's two ways for us to work. First thing is to try materials that we have around us. You want to solve a problem, maybe the solution is just around you, and sometimes it is. And for the membrane, that's how we just started. And we had materials. I can't really reveal exactly what it was, but when materials we're working with, and actually it worked very well. We had incredible results. And that's the first step that gives you a direction and a belief that it's possible. So we knew it was possible to do it. And we could do a first somehow prototype with this, and we could actually do a demonstration with someone. And along the way, what we discovered is, beyond being reusable, what was very great about this, it was superior in terms of the way iteration was going on, and the stability of the paint, and the way the paint behaved on the surface and everything. So it was interesting to see. Yes, maybe it's reusable, but at the same time, we could improve on the other parameters, which will be more interesting at the end, maybe for the painters themselves, which is how you can have better paint, better behavior of the paint and everything, and keep your paint weight for long at a stable stage. So this is how we started, and we had great prototypes. So that we solved one of the issues. Doing our material research, and I think it was more. So that's one way to do the research, is to find something that we know of. We test it, it works, and then we try to see how to make it industrialized, so to say. And the other thing is, you want some property for what for one of the components. You try to see if something exists, but more in a theoretical way. And once you find it, you try to, of course, source it, test it, and then optimize it. So that's the two way we do this. So the membrane was done as a first step, more like, we know this stuff, we can try it. While the foam itself, it was more theoretical research, and then source it and then try it. So you got these two ways to do things.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to talk about, Fabrice, is really the journey that happened during that first Kickstarter, because I was part of it. I was like I said, I an early backer, I think the second day that you open the Kickstarter, and the comments going. And so for those of you listening that may not be aware of this, and we're going to talk about this, but I want to give you a little bit of a background. So Redgrass Games comes out of nowhere and has this very interesting wet palette. And what Fabrice talked about is very true, and it still happens to me. I'll you guys will put up a social media post, and I'll always go say this thing is great. Like, this is the best wet palette in the market, and then you're guaranteed to have 10 other people come up, well, I'll just use my, Tupperware and my sponge. Well, it's like, yeah, well, you're right, you can, but that's not what this is about. But the thing in the Kickstarter that got my attention was this membrane. And this concept of a reusable surface as opposed to using the parchment or baking paper. And I thought that the design was neat overall of it, and the sponge was a neat concept, but it was the membrane that really brought it up to attention. And you guys went through a journey, and you were very communicative during that process of that first Kickstarter. Very clear, we're trying this, and what ended up happening is the membrane wasn't going to happen, at least not for this delivery of this first one. And you guys were very open about it. You were very clear about it, and I, as a customer, was like, well, that sucks, because that's kind of really what drew me in. But there was other things. I was like, you know what, let's keep going. And I got the wet palette with the paper, and the paper is really good paper. And I loved the product. And so it ended up being a great end of the story. You ended up, even though it wasn't exactly what you had hoped for from the beginning, you ended up delivering the best wet palette in the market, which was, even without the membrane, was better than anything any else was preparing. But what I'm curious about, Fabrice, is I cannot imagine, and I want to hear about that journey from your side, right? Because that had to have been some difficult decisions had to be made during that process. And I would love to get a little bit of insight what that was like for you to have to make those types of decisions, and that had to have been an emotional journey.
Actually, I think we will, in any project that you're going to conduct and everything, work is predominant. You need to work a lot to have things happen. But I think also there is a little bit of luck that you need to have. Yeah. And I think that initially we were somehow misled by what we found as a reusable membrane, and we work on it, and we strongly believe that we'll be able to reach from the sample stage to the prototype stage and to actual production stage. And I don't know if you were with us from the earliest beginning. It was, I think we started to talk about the palette, I think in March, 2017, if I'm not wrong. And we thought at first that we'd be able to have all these together and guaranteed to work around the summer or maybe June or something of the same year. And once we had this first initial prototype, we went try to industrialize it and correct the few things that we're not happy with. And along the way, we're always having success. Yeah, we improve on that, but then you try to reuse and then it will fall apart, or it will improve, or you change. And you need to have a partner to do this, which are the producers themselves of the membrane we're working on. They have limited patience, we say, in this type of process. So because technically, I don't know if people realize, but we work with companies. They have technologies, but we ask them to do things differently. So they have to trust us that at the end it will work, because they're not always. We're not a producer of a membrane. Right. I don't have a factory in my. So I need to rely on factories and engineers, and they need to trust us. So we were going through this iteration, usually, and testing everything, and we went up to a stage where, at the same time, I don't know if you realize this, but we do a benchmark to compare.
Right.
Which means, we have this setup to test, and then we have this benchmark setup to test, and the benchmark was the foam we discovered, because the foam was no issue. In terms of production and everything, it was great. It was flat and everything. We really loved how it behaved.
Yep.
And we had this paper hanging around there that we were comparing to, and it was good. It was actually a good paper. In terms of characteristics and everything. Maybe it could be feeble building because it was a bit weak in terms of of strength at the time when we were testing. So we had these two setups to test, and then we went. We promised that the Kickstarter will launch. We had a huge community. I think you were on this, and it was like, oh yeah, we didn't want to launch because we pushed back because we were not sure that if we put the product on and say it would be reusable, we didn't have the confirmation that it would be possible to offer it reliably to the customers. So this is how, I mean, we had this emotional thing over the summer, well, progress, step backs, and so we had to make a decision, which is the design was ready in terms of the palette. We didn't talk a lot about this, but Vivian came up with a very neat idea on how to do this palette design and how to optimize, how to make it low profile, everything, but we did all the accessories with the added. Anyway, so we had a very nice box, very useful. People love it when they use it. So prototypes, and we couldn't reach this stage where the membrane worked sufficiently. Maybe we could have done it. I don't know, but we didn't want to deceive people and say, and at the end say, okay, sorry guys, it doesn't work. So we had to make a decision up there.
Yep.
And we say, okay, this is hard because you see, I think if at the first stage I told Vivian we're going to do a palette, we told together we're going to do a palette without this reusable. I'm not sure we would have done this journey and launch the product because we would not have believed that it would make a difference. But in front of the setup that we had was great actually with everything except the membrane. That the paper was so great. We said, let's give it a try. And we put a lot of, I mean, for the Kickstarter, we put these huge packs of paper sheets. They say, okay, you'll be able to use it. So okay, that's how it came across. But I mean, it went to a stage where we say, okay, we need to launch anyway, so let's jump and let's try it. If it doesn't work, then it was a good ride, and it worked. I mean, so we had this tremendous. I mean, some guys were of course a little bit disappointed because the membrane was not there.
Sure.
But we had a strong support for the rest, and it was great to launch. To be honest, after being 6-9 months trying to do something and failure after failure, and then finally have something that worked fine. So that's how we came across. And then we took Kickstarter and went ahead with the chance to have such a strong support from the backers that we could really implement the products as we had it in mind for everything. So that was a great opportunity.
Well, and I got to tell you, it what made me back it without the membrane was the level of communication. One, and the honesty, because to your point, Fabrice, you could have very easily said, this isn't perfect. This isn't exactly what we want, but let's go ahead and put it out there. Let's get it out there. And you would have lost me, right? If I had gotten a subpar product from you, I wouldn't have gotten your brushes, your handles, and all the other stuff. And I wouldn't have just backed the second version of all of this. And I respected that. And the communication was very, very clear, which is a lesson that I wish other companies followed because I've been burned by other companies that didn't do that. So, James, I'd be curious for you, because at this point, are you outside of Redgrass when all of this is happening?
Yeah, I'm essentially an elevated fanboy. So obviously I got the first gen wet palette years ago now, and I actually used it in my interview.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I they're like, what, the usual questions, why do you want to work for Redgrass? And I was like, here it is. But yeah, so I'm relatively new to the team. I only joined this year, so but I think it's a mark of success, and it definitely ties in with what you were saying about the willingness of the company to be open and honest. Yep. Is that A, they're successful enough to be able to employ me, and B, when we're talking about how we deal with people on social media or how we answer questions on Kickstarter, it is always very open and honest and just dealing with everything as it comes. And I respect that a great deal, and it makes my job a lot easier when I can just be as honest as they want me to be. There's no mysteries. There's no hidden secrets or anything like that.
Well, and it's nice and it's refreshing. All right. So, James, I'm going to ask you a question, and you can understandably say, Craig, I don't want to answer that question. Okay. And we can edit this out. But I'll ask it and we'll see what happens. You have an interesting perspective because you work for Fabian and for Fabrice and for Vivian.
Yeah.
I conflated the names together into one name.
Team Fabian, yeah.
Yeah. How do you, as someone who sees them working together, is there a dynamic that you have noticed in this time working with them that's interesting and revealing?
That's an interesting question. I think they're very much just like brothers. I don't know if you have any siblings yourself, Craig, but
I do. I'm the oldest of four. So.
Well, I'm the youngest of four. So we've got the whole gamut here.
Exactly.
But no, they work fantastically together. It's very complementary. But I think, as Fabrice has said, they've both got different angles at how they look at things. But it's never combative. It's right. How they add something to a solution rather than how they lock horns, because they don't. So yeah, it's been very interesting to see.
I bet. Yeah, that type of dynamic. I worked for a family business a long time ago, and it was run by three brothers, and it was very fascinating to see what was like concentric circles. There was overlap, but each of them had their own thing. Unlike apparently Fabrice and Vivian, it was combative with them, and often I was in the middle of it. But it's absolutely fascinating to see how that works. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. After this break, I want to talk about really the next big thing that comes out of Redgrass. I want to talk about the paint handles. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alexander Zdanchuk from Riga, Latvia, and I'm a patron of Third Floor Wars. Those guys open the beauty of Malifaux 3rd Edition to me and continue to provide tons of great content. You can support them too. Follow the links in the show notes below or search for Third Floor Wars at patreon.com.
What is it worth to you to get this podcast on a weekly basis? Is it worth $1 a month? $5 a month? $20 a month? If you'd like to help support the work that we're doing here on Third Floor Wars, please go by our Patreon. We're at patreon.com/Third Floor Wars. There you can pledge at any level, any dollar amount. Whatever you give us will help us put out quality content on a regular basis and hopefully make tabletop gaming a little bit better for you every week.
Hey, it's time to welcome some of the newest floor heads to our Patreon. Big thanks goes out to Joe Root, Alan Cardinal, Raven Zatto, Richard Beach, Philip Savoy, Patrick Allen, Third, Sean P. Kelly, Jesse Ravicki, James Kahn, Rage Quit Wire, Doc Royal, Eloy Centron, Robo Rotten, and Jacob Suderman. Because of you and the 100 plus other patrons, we're able to put out content on a weekly basis. Thank you.
So the first idea is to find something that people can make on their own for pennies and say, you know what, I'm going to charge, $50 for this, even though you don't need it, right? So that was an interesting business model, but it ended up working out really well because it's worth the money and more. So then the next thing you do is you say, you know what, I realize that you, for pennies on the dollar, can put things on top of your paint pots. You can use a cork from your wine bottle to mount your models. What we're going to do is we're going to create something and see if you want to buy it. But again, you are able to design something that makes it worth the money. So where did the idea, Fabrice, come from initially for a paint handle?
I think you started to understand how it maybe we talk about the wet palette and how we sit at the Vivian's desk and see, okay, what can we do better? And I think that's one of our starting point, which is we try to make tools for Vivian so that he can improve his painting, basically. So we're at his desk, and he had this, of course, his wine corks and stuff to handle the millimeters. And he said, yeah, maybe we can do something on this one. And the initial idea, this time we watched a lot more how people were painting. It's so different approach. I mean, we had so many pro painters. We had the opportunity and chance to work with, and so we were watching how they're painting, and basically we felt like they need to interact with a miniature, but we need to find a way to connect them to the miniature without putting something in between, like I don't know, a huge, some huge mechanism to hold your miniatures, for instance, or too heavy a weight, or something too big in your hand, or something. That's how we started to do things, and we noticed that a lot of painters tend to rotate. You see, I mean, the miniatures when they're painting, and we say, okay, maybe we can work in this direction and to say how we can have something that is very comfortable in your hand, and how we can somehow rotate in the way it could work. So we had two competing design in this one. This is a different approach that we did, and two ways to do this. The first one was I would call maybe a spinning top. It's a very small thing that has a good balance and stuff. Yep. And we said maybe we can work on this type of shape and see what we can come up with. So Vivian tried a lot of different things. And the other way was to have something that was basically the handle that we created at the end. And initially not so sophisticated, but the idea was a little bit there, something that we have in the hand and something that rotates on the top. So quickly we had to put aside the initial spinning top, because it was far away from what you needed to turn it and stuff. So we said no, and we went ahead full steam on only one type of design. I don't know how many iterations Vivian did, but I don't know, maybe hundreds. I don't know. And it was working with clay at first. Like doing sculptures and stuff on how it should be in your hand. So, and then he found a shape, the shape that we have today. So you bring a lot of stuff. And then we had to convert this in a 3D prototype and find a way to make the dampened rotation. You see, because if you do something that's rotate and it's not held into place when you stop using it, you get it won't be usable. So we had to find a way to do this. And again, I think this project is more Vivian's project in the sense that I had not so many inputs in terms of techniques. Right. So we found a way to build this, and that's how we built the first prototype. And that was a long internal research testing, and at the end we got this shape, and we needed to industrialize. So that's one part of the thing. And then we had a lot of thought about how to connect the miniature to the holder itself, and we tried a lot of mechanical way to do this. We had also some strange jelly materials. It was fun, but over time it would be full of dust and everything, and it wouldn't work anymore, and it was not reliable. You could put your miniatures up, buff is down, so it was not what we wanted, and that's when we went back to the basics, and we found the right formula for a putty that would be stable, not so sticky, but sticky enough to hold your miniature the right way. And so it was, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was so good that I said, okay, that's the right way to do this. And that's how we went to this one.
Yeah, and I've warned everybody that I'm a fan, right? So I'm going to talk about the handle here, and you already know that I like the handle, and I wouldn't have had them on if I didn't like their products. But I want to emphasize a few things that Fabrice talked about for those of you that don't have these paint handles. And it's very subtle. And in a very good way. One is the fit to the hand. So it's fascinating to learn how that design came about using clay and kind of, it sounds like Vivian, going through the different iterations of the formations. It's light, but two things. One, the fact that you designed it so the thumb, it right where my thumb naturally lands when I hold the handle is where I rotate the miniature, which sounds really tiny, but it is huge. But the big thing was, and I didn't realize this until I was using the handles for a while, is the resistance level when I'm rotating. To your point, if I spun it and it just was too easy to spin, then it'd be something I wouldn't use, right? Because it would spin beyond it, but it also isn't too hard. Somehow you guys figured out kind of that perfect way to mechanize it so the spin is on there. And there is far more elaborate handles out there. I own many of them, but I find myself coming back to your paint handle for the reasons I just talked about. The second thing, and I thought about this was when I first saw the paint handle, is I was like, oh, they just put blue tack on top of it, right? That's how they're holding the miniature. So I fully expected when I got mine that it was going to be just like the blue tack that I was already using, but there's something different about the material that you use to attach it. It's not blue tack, it's something else, and it's got properties that blue tack doesn't. First and foremost, it holds my miniature and I can separate it and I don't have to pick it off of the miniature off the bottom. It keeps to itself. So it's very, very fascinating. The process that you and your brother must go through. And I've been joking about it because it's funny, but it's true. You take stuff that's already there and you do small things. The wet palette was an example of it, and this handle is an example of it. Of it's little touches that make the difference and make them what they are. And I appreciate that. I do want to talk real quick though about the brushes, because this was another situation where once again I was like, who needs another company putting out brushes? And you guys had sent it to me to evaluate and to look at. And they are basically, there's two companies putting out brushes, and this is the brush that I use more often than not. And there's a couple key decisions here I want to know, Fabrice. One, who thought putting out brushes was a good idea? Was that you or your brother, or did you guys decide that together?
No, I think you understood that depending who you ask, it will be Vivian or me. No, honestly, I think it's Vivian idea, of doing the brushes the way they were. I think the initial idea behind doing the brushes, you see, when you have a look at the lineup, at the catalog of brushes, there are so many.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to use? Which size? Which materials? Which everything? And then when you start to collection all of them, you have a full set. You're happy, but it's difficult to let's say invest a lot of money in the quality if you need to have so many. At least it might be. So I think the initial thought had been maybe we can find a way to have the highest quality that we can afford in terms of brushes, and at the same time try to limit the number that you would need to paint. And that's how we came up with two sizes, basically. The main brush that you will be using, this is our size number 2, and then the precision brush that should be here to help you do all these tiny things that you wouldn't be able to do with the main brush, your main brush. And that's how we set up the full the lineup, and not to do the 000, 0, blah blah blah. So we try to simplify the choice for people, and we try to work on the quality, and we try to promise that with these two brushes you should be able to do a lot of things.
It was a gutsy choice, Fabrice, because it was definitely not what other companies were doing. And James, you might agree with me on this. As you get better as a painter, you realize that if I have one or two good brushes, that can keep a tip, there's not a big difference between a 0 and a 000. If I've got a good tip, I much rather have the 0 or the 1 with a good tip, because it holds my paint longer, right? Yeah. It has a bigger well to it. And, that's what I have found with these Redgrass brushes, is that they hold my paint longer because they're larger than the other brushes I was using. But because the tip is so good, and you have to take care of them, obviously, I still am able to get the precision. I'm still able to get the small lines. So I'd be curious, Fabrice, and we don't have to get too far into it, but what's the difference? Why is it that I am finding my Redgrass brushes, when you do the same amount of maintenance to them as I do other brushes? What is it about your brushes that allows you to maintain those tips for the way you do? What's different about them?
This is a good question, because the other project, as you can see, we were more or less the main, let's say, producer of the prototype, we had full control of what we were doing. I mean, the palette is 100% us. I mean, nobody, was here to help us out. The handle is the same thing, but the brush is something different because you need a brush master to be able to produce a brush. So it was a very, the first stage would have been to select the right brush master to work with and producer if you want. Because at the end, this is there is a guy who actually built the brush with his hand, and then produce it again and again and again. This is handwork. I mean, the brushes we have. And Regan was able to create a great connection with this producer basically, and he went through our very hard iterative process. And he lived through it. So
he lived through you and Vivian going, "This is garbage. Try again. This is garbage. Try again."
This is basically it. I mean, Vivian was doing this. I mean, I don't know how many times the guy had to do it again. But until Vivian I think he had a vision of what he wanted in terms of tip, and you're right in terms of belly and then the proportion and everything, because. Usually, if you ask a brush master to do something for miniature, as a brush, without our input, he would do something that's miniature. He would make put short hair and everything. You would have any belly. You would try to have some kind of a tip, but no. But anyway, so it would not. Optimized brush for miniatures, they are not so good, and that's why people tend to use. Let's say brush for over mean and then try to use it for miniatures. One company, one brush of the company, and everybody knows. That's the thing we do. But for us, we tried to create something that was very specific and we put a lot of work on this main size, because it's very difficult to have the belly at the same time and the tip that stays.
Exactly.
And I can't tell you exactly what hair was used and how it was positioned, but basically, this is a iterative work until and communication work until the one who knows the thing, a bit like at the beginning I was saying, the one who knows how to do thing, get an input from the user or maybe an external eye, and then end up understanding what he needs to do and be able to do it. And it's it was it's a very difficult job to do at the end, and actually it's very difficult to change the size of what we have developed.
Sure.
The main brush that we have, if we want to do one step up, one step down, it's very difficult. Actually, we haven't done it yet because we thought, maybe, I think we do think you need two brushes to work. I agree. Brush to work, but some guys prefer to, some persons prefer to have maybe one slightly smaller, slightly larger, and we're working on something like that, so that you shouldn't two, but maybe you have a choice maybe for the main, but it's very, very difficult to obtain this shape, and I think it will depend on the strength of the hair and everything, and that is the control. So so that's a lot of iterative work is the key, I think, and you need to have a vision of what you want, and then to go to the direction, and you hope that the guy working with won't give up, and you need to encourage him from time to time, of course.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because as a Luddite who does not produce brushes, in my mind, it's just like, well, make it bigger, make it smaller. Come on, it can't be that difficult. But it makes a ton of sense as you explain it, that the proportions and how it works and the length of the hair, and I would imagine the materials offer limitations. So what I love about these two brushes may not be able to be flexed up and down in the way that you would just assume. So we've done a good job, I think, covering the three products that I own of yours that I love. But I'd be curious, James, talking about maybe things that are on the horizon. So what do we see coming out of Redgrass now? What's being worked on that we can talk about? What are some things that listeners can look forward to?
Yeah, that's the big one, isn't it? What can we talk about? The the big one that we can talk about and people are kind of still starting to rave about is the lamp.
So just real quick, once again, we see Redgrass going, here's something that you can go buy at the local supply store, but we are going to make it better. So I'm dying
to reinvent
hear,
the wheel.
I don't have the lamp yet, but I'm curious to know. I know by default, the company has proven itself that I know that I will like the lamp, but I don't know why yet. So help me out.
So I think Redgrass occupies an interesting space in that it's a kind of nexus point between science and technology, and then the kind of very subjective nature of creativity.
Interesting.
So you can apply all the kind of high tech stuff that you want, but at the end of the day, it still matters what the person, the artist in front of the canvas or in front of the miniature is doing.
Yep.
And a big gap in the market is good lighting. You can, of course, use any lighting at all. You could use candlelight if you really wanted to. But I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with finding a good lighting source that's consistent and shows everything in their true kind of color rendering.
Right.
And so this is definitely something that Vivian's been slaving away at in the background to try and work on, because nothing at Redgrass is done frivolously. If they decide that something needs to be done, it's because there's a gap in the market, not just from an economic standpoint, but also from a need. Right. The artists need a new lamp. And the ones that you can get at the dollar store will do the job. But when you are seriously invested in your hobby or your profession, depending on how committed you are to painting, it's a mark of that investment when you upgrade. And when you want something that's reliable and consistent and can really help you push yourself. It's like you said at the very beginning of the interview, you don't need good brushes to be a good artist. If you're a good artist already, then you'll probably see a way through. But this helps a lot. If you've got a good, reliable brush, if you've got a good, reliable wet palette, and then the final milestone is a good, reliable light source, which doesn't exist yet. And so that's why Redgrass has been working so hard at trying to create one. And I think we're there. We're almost there.
Well, what's fascinating for me, Fabrice, and this is not typical. I don't usually see this, but I can't go buy the lamp right now. In the way that I couldn't go buy the wet palette when you first started talking about it. You guys are so transparent about this process that you're going through. So like it sounds to me like the lamp's not finalized yet. You're not done and you're not happy with it yet. But yet I heard about the lamp first months ago. So I'd be curious, Fabrice, what is the thinking behind that approach of saying, hey, here's something we're kind of goofing around with and we're still working on it. We don't know what it's going to look like when we're done. But you're so transparent about that, and it's not normal. so what is the thinking here?
How we came up with we want to do a lamp?
Well, no, the concept that I'm seeing coming out of Redgrass of showing your potential customers and your current customers, this is what we're working on, but we're not done yet. And walking us through the process of iterations as they happen, who thought that was a good idea? Because it is a good idea, by the way. But I want to know who thought it was a good idea.
I think that's more Vivian is more open on what we're doing. I mean, it's that I think you need to so that people start to think about the product and how product. I think it's like for us, we need a lot of time, and what's interesting about this lamp, it's been a long project. It's like a huge project for us. We actually started it in 2018. I don't know.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So it was a very, very long project we went through. A lot of iteration. I don't think you've seen half or a quarter of what we've done. So yeah, we're transparent, but to a certain amount. I mean, if we're
transparent but world weary,
we start to show things to people once we think, this is
it's close
in a way. When we're confident to think we're close enough to show it to people and to try and see if people have interest in it or not, and to get a little bit of feedback, not too much, because it's difficult for people to have a projection of what the product would be just through a picture, just for a description and everything. But it's good for us. It's reassuring for us to see. Okay, this is the lamp. We like to show it to where we are, where we stand, and where we. The lamp is. You're right. We started to talk a long time ago because, as I told you, it's been 3 years? Yeah, something like that.
That's amazing.
It's been 3 years. So. Otherwise, it starts with the thought that Vivian's desk is missing something. So we start with that, and we work in this direction. And the lamp, we start from very far away. The palette Vivian had was good. His wine cork were good too. It was okay to paint with, but the lamp is horrible. His lamp set was horrible. Yeah. So we say, okay, we really need to do something with that. And as this is a very technical product. It's different from what we've been dealing with so far, because there's electronics, there are optics, there are LEDs, and there is a lot of different components to work on. And initially, we tried to work. It was the first time we did that for a project. We tried to work with external designers at the early stage, which normally we don't do, because normally we just get to the work and do stuff, experiment, 3D print, clay again, and iteration and stuff. And we did this a bit on for the lamp. We had a setup, had some ideas, something he was working on, and he thought maybe that was his idea. Maybe we could try and work with some external designers who are specialized into lamps. They're specialists of lamps for designers.
Right.
And we started to work like this. I think it was 2018, and it was a bit an uncomfortable process for us because we're not used to have someone else try to inject some creativity in what we're doing.
Well, they're not your brother.
We were not happy with what we were seeing. The first iteration was like, so we kind of, polite. So we don't say, okay, this is unacceptable or something. Say, oh yes, maybe you could tweak it this way. So we were a bit this way, and the guy was confident that what he was doing was what we expected, but we didn't feel at home. So. Yep. After a while, the concept, I can't show you pictures of it, but the concept were not. I didn't bring anything to the painting. Vivian didn't feel like it would change the way he paints. So we gave up with this first research designer, and then we thought maybe we could try and work with some lighting specialists, because you have companies specialized in lighting. Right. We can optimize, the lens and everything. And again, we involve them too early in the process. Huh. I think we needed to do the work first on our side to reach a certain level of confidence of what we want to do. And then you bring in the specialist who will help you, optimize things, but given, like a framework that you define. And if you don't have that and you try to let them spin around and bring you something to you, the result won't be satisfactory. And actually, this is the second work we did with this lighting specialist. They had some ideas of what we needed to do, because we gave them some guidelines, and the result was not so good. So we went back to, Vivian has a kitchen, but he also has a basement, where he has all his prototypes and from the early stages, and we had a look at all the lamps that he had around and all the prototype that he built. And we're in front of this. It looks like nothing. It was a LED bar, and it had nothing, very, very light and everything. And we start. Okay. You take the miniature, you put it as if you were painting, and you try to see how the shadows reflect and how the contrast does and everything. And we're saying, but maybe we need to work around this, something like a way to position the light near your eyes as close as possible, and be able to orientate it. And that's how we started with the concept of the idea to have LED bars, because I don't know if you've seen the lamp, Craig, but basically it's two LED bars that are together and that you can orientate, something like this.
I did not realize that.
And actually you can orientate them, and you can position the light in a way. Actually you can, maybe it's a bit too much, but you can sculpt how the lighting will go on your miniature. and that help, I think, to position the lighting exactly as you wish. You can concentrate both light on your miniature if you like. You can have one ray of light on your miniature and one in the background, so that you have some kind of ambient lighting, some
Very
ambient
nice.
backlighting. So this is how we came with this idea, basically, and from there, then of course we involve some specialists to have something that works, because this is a very technical project this time. And it was long to arrive to this point, and now it's an iterative process where we try to bring it to a level that is confirmed in terms of let's say capacity to produce it as how we see it. We have some prototypes, they're great, but we want to make sure that until the end, this is something we can produce, and we're there, and we're not far.
Well, and there's a lot of considerations, right? Because you could make literally the greatest lamp. Wow, the greatest lamp that there is. But if you're not able to produce it so that you can put it out at a price that people are willing to pay, there's a lot of considerations that you have to go through and to balance out, which I truly appreciate. So as we're recording this, and this is going to be released in time for those of you listening, there's a big date that's ahead of us, and that's June 10th. You've heard me talking about the Everlasting Palette 2. And the Kickstarter is live as we're recording this, and I'm going to have this released in time that it comes out before June 10th, so that you have time to run and go get it. The Redgrass sent me the membrane. And I have not put it out on my paint streams yet. It's going to be going out there, and to be quite honest with you, the reason is because I wanted to figure it out first, right? I wanted to make sure, because for those my listeners already know this. If I tout something on my podcast or on my live streams or in my painting videos, it's because I've already put it to task. I'm not going to use something that I don't like. And I wanted to make sure that I like the membranes. The membrane is freaking awesome. And you're going to like it. So here's the thing. If you haven't gone, go check it out. Watch the video on the Kickstarter. And I don't normally do this. Listeners know this. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it. Do this. Back it, and you're going to like it. And I'm telling you this because I've already done enough now with Redgrass as strictly a consumer. And no way am I a partner with them or anything. They haven't given me a dime. I don't want a dime from them. The only thing they have done is sent me some product. But I'm telling you, the company has proven itself. And if you don't have a wet palette, go get this one and hold me responsible if you don't like it. You're going to enjoy it. But timing wise, watch out, because this is going to be coming out closer than we wanted it to, closer to the June 10th time. So guys, as we finish up, obviously, we're going to link to the Redgrass website. And to make sure that people can go there. I'm also going to have a link to this Kickstarter for the Wet Palette 2. James, where else can people get more Redgrass?
We obviously have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So you can check those out. And then obviously, even when I'm not at Redgrass and I'm on my own personal painting page, I'm often touting Redgrass anyway. So if you want to see more painted miniatures, you can see my page on Instagram, and
Beautiful.
It's still Redgrass. So you get a twofer.
Yeah, and what we'll do is we'll have all of those links in the show notes. So if you scroll down while you're listening to this, you're going to have links to all of that. Fabrice and James, I can't thank you guys enough for making the time. You are in the middle of a Kickstarter right now, so I imagine you're a little busy, but yet you allowed me to steal an hour from you. So Fabrice, thanks again.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to talk about the way we produce things, because we never done that before. It's the first interview.
Oh, cool.
So I'm happy we done that, and I hope you can enjoy our future product.
I hope I do too, because I just put my ass on the line.
He's out there now, so.
So just so you know, Fabrice, if I lose all credibility with my listeners because this Wet Palette 2 is terrible, I'm going to hold you responsible.
No, it would be amazing. The product is amazing. If you have, the membrane is amazing, and I think the box we're working on, the palette itself, I think it's a huge improvement compared to what we have been doing so far. So yeah, I'm sure you're going to like it.
Well, sure. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't believe that, and I think that my listeners have not been disappointed with my recommendations up to this point. If they have, maybe they're not listeners anymore. They haven't told me, but I do appreciate the trust that all of you listening have putting into it. And James, I'm going to have all those links in there, and thank you for coming on.
My very great pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. And for those of you that stuck around all the way to the end, I appreciate you listening. Take care. Hey, did you hear that? You leveled up. You finished another episode of Tabletop Talk from Third Floor Wars. If you want more from the third floor, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Head on over to our YouTube channel. It is packed with painting tutorials, gaming tips, battle reports, and role-playing actual plays. Did you enjoy this episode? Why don't you send a link to one of your friends so they can enjoy it too? Last but not least, write us a review on your podcatcher of choice. This helps us find listeners almost as cool as you. The reason I gave you an out there, James, is because like you work for these people. So it's like
my P45 unemployment form is being shipped to me as we speak. Yeah,
exactly. So I appreciate it, and you answered it very well, and you so that was good.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let's bring it.
It is true. Yeah,
No, but it's true. It's true and honest. But I think you didn't have a lot of chance to see us work together because, it's. Anyway, I think we work a lot with James. I mean, I work a lot more with James right now, because Regan is a bit in a difficult situation. So
good.
But you
still have a paycheck coming, James.
Quite too much.
Oh, thank God.
All right.
Yeah.
No, you can be honest.
Well, I mean, that's the whole company ethos, isn't it? It's open and honest.
So that's very cool. That makes me very happy. All right, I'll bring us back. Absolutely fantastic, both of you gentlemen.
Oh,
thank you.
All right, so I'm done talking.
James, you're unbelievable.
He's good at this.
I didn't know all this. When we did the interviews and stuff, you didn't tell me about this boyfriend. I mean, anyway.
Now you're discovering so much, right?
My dark and hidden secrets.
Show.
Yeah.
So, what you should have said, James, is go, in the first company I worked from, after I embezzled for a while, I moved on to...
Oh, nothing so glamorous, unfortunately. Just a high school teacher who just didn't like it anymore.
That's fantastic. All right, I'll bring us back. And Fabrice, we're going to talk about just kind of the very beginnings. So I think it'll be a focus on your transition from one career to this career. Is that okay?
No problem, yeah.
All right, wonderful. I'll bring us back. Howdy, friends. Craig here. Today we're talking to Fabrice Massad and James Reegan of Redgrass Games. Did I get both pronunciations right?
It's Regan, but
Regan.
I know why you said Reagan.
Yeah, let's redo that then.
Massad was outstanding,
Okay, good. So I got the hard one right.
I blame Ronald if it's any consolation.
Yes, we'll try that again. Fascinating to see how that works. So, guys, we're going to take a quick break. I want to take. Let's try that again. Hey, are you still here? Look, the podcast is over. And you sat through all of the breaks and bloopers? Well, I mean, if you're here, you might as well run over to patreon.com and become a supporter. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast too while you're at it, on whatever platform you're listening to. I do appreciate you sticking around. Take care.